What happens to you 10 seconds before death? Rebirth and reincarnation. What happens to a person 10 seconds before they die? What sensations do they experience? No one knows for sure what happens when they die, and just thinking about death often leads to tears and sorrow. As a result, death remains a source of fear for humanity. Welcome back, everyone, to Mind Podcast. Everyone dies once, but only a very few experience death and then come back to life. Therefore, most people cannot experience what it feels like to die. This is why death remains a source of immense fear and anxiety for humans. What do people see after death? Many scientists have offered different perspectives on this question. Some believe that after death, a person enters a parallel world to begin a new cycle of reincarnation. Others believe that after death, a person sees those who have passed away before them. However, among the countless debates, one perspective is more terrifying than all, that after death, a person can still hear the voices around them. Therefore, it is crucial to be cautious with your words and actions, and saying goodbye to someone in the final stages of life. Curiosity drives experts to continue researching what sensations people experience when they die. For instance, a man slipped and fell down a waterfall. In the moments just before his death, he saw the memories of his life flash before his eyes. Fortunately, his brother caught him in time, and the man survived, but he could never forget that surreal moment. He described it as if everything was moving in slow motion, like a movie playing out in his mind. He said it was the first time it happened, and even now, he still feels chills when he thinks about it. This experience is not unfamiliar, whether in real life or on the screen. Most of us have heard of it. Now, science confirms that the phenomenon of life memories replaying before death is real. Renowned American psychologist Dr. Raymond Moody conducted research on 150 people who had near-death experiences and drew some conclusions about their sensations. Although the situations and personalities of these individuals were very different, Moody affirmed that there were some common experiences during their near-death moments, categorized into 14 groups as follows. These groups are arranged in the order of sensations reported by those who experienced them. 1. Hearing the doctor or others around say that they had died. They felt extreme physical exhaustion. 2. Feeling peaceful and comfortable. Although there was initial pain, quickly disappeared, and they found themselves floating in a space filled with darkness, enveloped in an overwhelming sense of relaxation. 3. Hearing strange sounds. A young girl mentioned hearing a melody-like sound, which was very beautiful. 4. Feeling as if they were being pulled into a dark space, which felt like a transitional area between the earthly world and a strange realm. 5. Experiencing the sensation of leaving their body. A drowning man who was rescued described the sensation of leaving his body and floating freely, as light as a feather. 6. Being unable to communicate with others. A woman who had a near-death experience said she tried to communicate with those around her, but no one could hear her. 7. Continuously moving in and out of their body with no sense of time. 8. Experiencing heightened visual and auditory sensitivity. A man reported never seeing so clearly or hearing so acutely. 9. Feeling an intense sense of loneliness, unable to communicate with others. 10. Seeing other beings around them, some of whom seemed to be there to guide them to the afterlife. 11. Encountering a bright light with a clear human-like quality in the final moments of their near-death experience. 12. Replaying their entire life like a movie in slow motion in the moments before death. Those who experienced this describe the scenes as vivid and detailed, even replaying multiple times. 13. Facing a barrier or boundary that prevented them from moving on to another place, which could take many forms such as water, mist, a door, or a wild fence. 14. Returning to life after being saved from a near-death experience, with varying degrees of reluctance to re-enter the body, especially if they encountered the light during their near-death experience. The above are some of the sensations people experience in the moments before death. It's unimaginable that these sensations can happen in just a few moments. These observations were compiled by scientist Raymond Moody after his research. For scientists, human death is not a simple matter. From their perspective, human death can be divided into 3 stages: the dying stage, clinical death, and biological death. The dying stage, often referred to as near death, is the time when a person is about to die but is not yet dead. During this stage, a person's consciousness remains alert, but their ability to respond declines rapidly, causing confusion and delayed reaction. This phenomenon becomes increasingly clear over time, and the patient will struggle to breathe. At this point, a person's life has reached the threshold between life and death. During this stage, they can only hear loud noises or the cries of their loved ones, the advice of doctors, or the ticking of a heart monitor. Clinical death occurs when we can determine that a person has truly died because, during this stage, various reflexes of the dying person disappear, and most bodily functions cease. Most importantly, the heart and breathing will stop. It is worth noting that most countries worldwide currently use the cessation of heartbeats and breathing as the main criteria for determining natural death. If a dying person exhibits these two signs, it is generally considered that they are beyond the point of no return. Biological death is the final boundary of life. Once a person enters this stage, their body truly falls into a state of exhaustion, with the metabolism of various organs in the body ceasing. This means that the body cannot be revived. From a Buddhist perspective, the dying process involves the dissolution of both external and internal elements. External dissolution occurs when the senses and the physical body disintegrate, while internal dissolution involves the disintegration of thoughts and emotions. The death of a person is just one stage in the endless cycle of birth, aging, illness, and death. First, the heart stops beating, then the lungs, followed by the brain, and finally the body decomposes. From the time the heart stops beating to the official declaration of death, doctors wait for about 2 to 3 minutes, or up to 10 minutes. However, the precise time, known as asystole, varies between the perspectives of Tibetan traditional medicine and modern medicine. According to Tibetan scriptures on life and death, it takes about 8 hours after the heart stops beating and the last breath is taken for a person to truly die. The embalming ritual is performed after this 8-hour period. Modern medicine, on the other hand, considers a patient truly dead after the heart has stopped beating for half an hour. The brain then dies 4 hours later with no more brain activity, and the body becomes cold and stiff, exhibiting the signs of death. Zen master Hokkaiin once said, "He who understands the essence of life and death is truly a great human being." The critical moments of death are when the breath ceases and vital energy retreats into the central nervous system, resulting in the experience of clear light. This vital energy descends along the nerves on either side of the spine, spreading to the left and right nerves after passing through the nerve centers in the navel. The time required for this transfer of vital energy, when the breath is faint, is roughly the time it takes to finish a meal. The time of dying is when vital energy remains in the central nervous system, causing consciousness to fluctuate. This period is uncertain, depending on the physical condition, nerve condition, and vital energy of each individual. However, those who have strong and calm meditation experience or possess a stable personality can prolong this period for 4 to 7 days. Those with a dissolute or unbalanced mental state may not prolong this period for longer than the snap of a finger, while others may prolong it for the duration of a meal, the initial clear light seen at the moment of death. If this clear light is recognized, it can lead to liberation for the dying person. Otherwise, after the final breath, there is another opportunity when the secondary clear light flashes. Depending on the individual's good or bad karma, vital energy descends along the right or left nerve pathway and exits through one of the 9 bodily openings: eyes, ears, nostrils, mouth, anus, or genitals. At that point, another state of clear consciousness emerges, lasting throughout the second stage of the intermediate state, where the deceased soul remains in a state called the body of clear light of illusion. In this state, the deceased may not yet realize that they have died. If a spiritual master skilled in transmitting knowledge assists the deceased in merging with the source light, their karma will not obstruct them, and they will merge into the ultimate reality and achieve liberation. If liberation is not attained in the second stage, the deceased will enter the third stage called the third intermediate state, during which karmic illusions will arise and last until the 49th day after death. These illusions are divided into 6 states: natural illusions based on mental projections, illusionary dreams, intense blissful states during deep meditation, transitional states at the time of death, experiences of reality, and the reverse process of reincarnation, recalling past lives from childhood to old age. After 49 days, the 3rd stage ends, and the deceased will be reborn in one of the 6 realms of samsara. According to Tibetan scriptures on life and death, the process of dying involves 2 stages of dissolution: external dissolution, when the senses and the physical body cease functioning, and internal dissolution of coarse and subtle thoughts and emotions. During external dissolution, the senses become inactive. If people around the deathbed speak, there will come a time when the dying person can hear their voices but cannot understand the words, indicating that their hearing is failing. Similarly, signs of decline also occur with the senses of sight, taste, and touch. When these senses can no longer fully perceive, it marks the 1st stage of the process of external dissolution. Earth element dissolution causes the body to lose strength, feeling exhausted and powerless, unable to sit up or hold anything, even failing to keep the head upright. It feels as though the person is sinking into the ground, being pressed down by a massive weight. The person's complexion fades and a pale bluish hue appears. The muscles contract, dark spots form on the teeth, and it becomes increasingly difficult to open or close the eyes. As the form aggregate disintegrates, the person becomes immobile, with an agitated mind, possibly muttering incoherently, before slipping into a state of unconsciousness. The water element dissolution causes the body to lose control of its fluids. The nose begins to drip, the mouth leaks saliva, and tears may flow. The person may lose control over bodily functions, with the tongue becoming immobile, the eye sockets drying out, lips turning pale and retracting, hands trembling, and intense thirst. As the sensation aggregate disintegrates, bodily sensations weaken, alternating between heat and cold. The mind becomes foggy, irritable, and easily agitated. According to scriptures, the dying person may feel as though they are being drowned in a vast ocean, or swept away by a powerful current. The fire element dissolution causes the mouth and nose to dry out completely, with warmth dissipating from the body, starting from the feet and gradually moving up to the heart. A subtle vapor may escape from the crown of the head, and breath becomes cold as it passes through the mouth and nose. The person loses the ability to eat or drink, with the mind becoming increasingly disoriented, unable to recall names or recognize loved ones. As the perception aggregate disintegrates, external stimuli blend into one another, causing confusion. Parlo Ringo explains that, for the dying person, it is as if they are being engulfed by a massive fire in the middle of a blazing furnace, or as if the entire world is burning. The air element dissolution causes breathing to become increasingly difficult, the breath seeming to escape from a tight passage. Inhalation becomes shorter and more labored, while exhalation becomes longer and weaker. The person lies still, with their eyes staring blankly. As the mental formation aggregate disintegrates, mind becomes wild, disconnected from the external world. Everything turns into a blurry mass. The dying person starts to have hallucinations and sees visions. If they have accumulated a lot of negative karma, they may see terrifying figures, and the haunting memories of their past come rushing back, causing them to scream in fear. On the other hand, those who have lived with compassion, kindness, and generosity may experience heavenly visions filled with joy, encountering loved ones or enlightened beings. Those who have lived a virtuous life feel peace instead of fear. Caroline Boudreau notes that the internal experience for the dying person is like a powerful whirlwind sweeping away the entire world, including themselves, as if the entire universe is being sucked into a vortex. At this point, blood collects in the central channel of life, located in the heart. 3 pulses of blood gather, causing 3 final breaths, and then suddenly, the breath stops. Only a faint warmth remains in the heart, a sign of the last vestige of life. This is where clinical death is considered complete. However, Tibetan masters teach that an internal process continues. Buddhism asserts that death is not the end, but a transition to a new life under certain laws, leading to rebirth. If humans were indeed born and then died in a cycle of birth, aging, illness, and death, human life would be meaningless. Buddhism views death as merely a transition, an event in the continuous flow of life. Death is not the end, but the continuation of life under certain laws, leading to a new existence. If humans were truly born and then died in a cycle of birth, aging, illness, and death, human life would indeed be meaningless. Understanding the true nature of death helps us avoid the negative influence of false beliefs and prevents us from falling into negative thoughts that lead to suffering for ourselves and society. Buddhism teaches that death is ever present in each of us, but due to ignorance, we often view it as the final end of our lives without realizing that we are dying every moment. The form we once had in the past, even if it still lingers in us today, must be let go of for us to grow in the future. Practicing meditation is the best way to prepare for death because it helps us merge with the true reality of each moment. Meditation teaches us to let go of all attachments, choosing the path of meditation as a way to integrate with the impermanent nature of death, constantly thinking about it and preparing for it. According to Buddhism, whenever someone is gravely ill and nearing death, they should be encouraged to prepare for their own death. When a dying person is about to pass away, it is better for loved ones not to cry, as tears create an unfavorable atmosphere that may trigger attachments in the dying person. For example, they may cling to us. However, indifference can also create a sense of anxiety and unhappiness for the dying person. They need to feel that they are not abandoned, so it is best to think of them with compassion. Buddhist teachings on reincarnation differ entirely from the concept of soul reincarnation in some religions, because Buddhism does not recognize the existence of an eternal, unchanging soul that transmigrates from one life to another. Only karma creates rebirth, meaning that past karma leads to the present, and the combination of past and present karma creates future rebirth. The present human being is the child of the past, and it will give birth to the future human being. Thus, there is a continuous process connecting past, present, and future life. From this, people wonder where the origin of life lies. Buddhism denies the eternity and unchanging nature of the soul. Not only will the soul die, but it has already died when it changes from one moment to the next. We are no longer the same as when we were children, and life will continue to transform us into something different from what we are today. Some religions or philosophies claim that death is the end, meaning that when the body dies, life ends, with no continuation of rebirth, so their sinful deeds do not have any consequences. In contrast, Buddhism teaches that human life is a continuous flow through the 6 realms of samsara, driven by ignorance and desire. Only when ignorance and desire are completely severed will the cycle of rebirth in samsara end, and that is one of the supreme fruits of Buddhahood and arahantship. Therefore, in many sutras, the Buddha often taught that beings who commit evil deeds will be reborn into suffering realms after death, while those who do good deeds will be reborn into joyful realms. The Buddha, out of great compassion, often seeks out those with affinity to save them because he sees that their evil deeds will have a negative impact on their future lives. In reality, those who shallowly think that death is the end and easily commit evil deeds often bring suffering to themselves, their families, and society. In contrast, those who practice the Buddha's teachings of faith in karma and rebirth will reap many practical benefits for themselves, their families, and the community. Buddhists have deep faith in the just and fair law of karma, meaning that the thoughts, words, and deeds created in past lives are the seeds that form our present body and life. With this understanding, we certainly do not avoid the results of karma in the cycle of birth and death. Helping Buddhists diligently cultivate good thoughts, words, and deeds according to the Buddha's teachings, which will inevitably lead to a peaceful and happy life in the present and future, and ultimately to liberation.